Oh, Stardust Crusaders, I think it's time we have a talk about our relationship. Look, don't get me wrong, you're a great part and were my first exposure to the series. You piqued my interest in this bizarre manga way back in 2015, seeing memes of the world, Joseph yelling in English, and Star Platinum beating the hell out of enemy stand users. You hold a special place in my heart, but I just have to be honest, and it pains me to say it, but you'll never be my favorite part of JoJo. I'm sorry, but I found a new love. Come on, JoJolene, let's get out of here. This could get ugly.
てめえは俺を怒らせた。
Hello everyone, Xforts here, and welcome to Stardust Crusaders, the good, the bad, and the ugly. A JoJo part discussion going over what I think is good, bad, and ugly in a specific part of JoJo. I may do every part in this format if that's something you guys would be interested in, and if it is, like the video and let me know down in the comments. But for now, I wanted to start with Stardust because it's common knowledge at this point that Stardust has its issues, and I want to discuss why it's generally considered a good part and probably the most popular part of JoJo, but very rarely people's favorite part. As well as I thought that the good, the bad, and the ugly logo would look pretty damn cool in a JoJo thumbnail. So let's start off with the positives, the good in Stardust Crusaders.
The good.
When discussing Stardust Crusaders, you have to bring up the introduction of stands into the series. Stands are undeniably the standout aspect from this part and establish the power system and arc format every other part of JoJo would follow, and it's Stardust that started it all, defining JoJo as we know it today. And although this part is nearly 30 years old starting in 1989, it's clearly stood the test of time, as just recently with its 2014 anime adaptation, it was able to take the world by storm, becoming one of the biggest names in anime. So stands are a massive plus for part 3 and still to this day has some of the best and memorable stand battles in JoJo, like Darby the Gambler, Vanilla Ice, and Dio with the World, as well as stands in part 3 were some of the simplest in the series and made for straightforward and enjoyable arcs without too much exposition having to explain a stand's ability during the fight. And beyond just the stands, I also have to give props to Stardust's main cast. Although not my favorite main cast in JoJo, the group still had a great dynamic, full of different cultures, nationalities, ages, and general role they would fulfill. I really enjoy seeing the group become close friends throughout the story and how these people from completely different worlds were able to form connections through a shared goal, which makes scenes like Polnareff and Avdol pissing into an enemy stand user's mouth all the more satisfying. And adding on to character dynamics, something I found really enjoyable about Stardust is the characters' over-the-top victories and how the final scene of stand battles are more campy and lighthearted than other parts that tend to have very serious or dramatic conclusions to fights. In Stardust, once the secret to an enemy stand is found, the characters will sometimes just burst out laughing or get really cocky because they'll know just how to humiliate the enemy, and will even troll the shit out of them sometimes and really enjoy messing with their opponent right before they beat the shit out of them, which added a lot of personality to the characters and a much needed comedic tone to the oftentimes monotonous format of the battles around the middle of the part. And speaking of that monotonous format, that brings us to the bad in Stardust Crusaders.
The bad.
Minor villains are the key to a memorable fight in JoJo and are the reason why when people discuss the best arcs in the series, you'll often hear examples like the Grateful Dead and Beach Boys, the True Man's World arc, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Vitamin C. And of course, the stand's actual ability plays a huge part into the overall enjoyability of the arc, but when you have an interesting user controlling that stand, it makes things all the better. But when it comes to Stardust Crusaders, there is a severe lack of memorable minor villains, to say the least, and oftentimes the stand users aren't even a factor, only revealed in the last moments of a fight, completely removing the stand user versus stand user dynamic in later parts of JoJo. Looking back at Stardust in retrospect, it's clear to see where Araki's focus was, as he had so many ideas for stands and was having a blast creating all of the bizarre abilities, but neglected the other important elements to stand battles, like the enemy stand users and how they would be introduced and implemented into the overarching story. As in part 3, pretty much every enemy stand user is simply a pawn working for Dio with little to no free will or motive of their own due to Araki's not-so-genius plot device of Dio's flesh buds, being able to turn any random on the street into one of his pawns to do his bidding, which after about the 15th or so enemy really started to feel like a drag. So although the JoJo formula, also known as Stand User of the Week, is tried and true, it just feels a bit too obvious in part 3, with how quickly our cast is rushed into fight after fight with little to no downtime or variety in between, when in contrast every part after Stardust is able to use the Stand User of the Week format, but it never feels feels as cut and dry because of how the plot progresses and the twists and turns thrown in along the way. So summed up, by far the weakest element in Stardust is the lack of memorable or even the existence of minor villains, although thankfully their stands are most of the time interesting enough to carry the arcs on their own. Other minor knocks to the part, in my opinion, would be too much Polnareff, as he gets so much screen time, and if you don't like his character, you probably won't enjoy this part. And that ties into this part's unequal development of characters, where some characters have tangible good development with subplots, while others might as well just be cardboard cutouts that the game carries around with them.
The ugly.
And now for the ugly in Stardust Crusaders. Pretty much every minor villain in the part. They're either disgusting or grossly disproportionate, or both. Okay, but seriously, for the ugly segment, I wanted it to be distinctly different from the bad. I wanted to find something within the part that isn't necessarily a fault with the source material, rather an unavoidable issue that comes with the nature of the part. Almost like a stain on its reputation that some may enjoy and others may not. So for Stardust Crusaders, I'd say that the ugly in this part is that it's slow, or at least it feels slow. When in reality, Stardust is actually the shortest part with stands, but it just feels slow paced because of the way the story is structured. As in the first few chapters and episodes, we know the end goal and what we need to do, defeat Dio. So we embark on this great journey, but when every fight is formatted the exact same way, things start to feel not so great. Something bizarre happens, this must be the work of an enemy stand, get bullied for a little bit, discover the stand's secret, outplay the stand, epic victory, rinse and repeat. And what makes things uglier is that this problem gets even worse with the anime adaptation, as Stardust Crusaders was stretched out to the absolute max, squeezing every bit of source material and then some out to make the part last 2 seasons. When it really didn't need to be. Parts 4 and 5, in my opinion, were paced perfectly with their anime adaptations, and every fight felt like it lasted just as long as it needed to, and each of those parts spanned 39 episodes, when Golden Wind's manga was 17 volumes and Diamond is Unbreakable's was 18 volumes. But somehow, Stardust Crusaders had a whopping 48 episodes when the original manga was only 16 volumes long, shorter than both Golden Wind and Diamond is Unbreakable, but 9 full episodes longer. So with that in mind, it's pretty clear to see why people consider the Stardust anime a bit of a drag, and one of those things you tell first-time watchers, you just gotta get through it. And that's why, in my opinion, I think part 3 is much more enjoyable on a rewatch. When you aren't concerned about getting to the end or the fight with Dio or getting on to the next part, you can really just enjoy every episode in the arc for what it is and the extra effort and animation David Production put in the anime adaptation. But for a first-time watcher, it does feel really slow when each arc is 2, sometimes 3 episodes long. As well as, again, it's just the nature of the part and how it's just an epic journey getting to Dio and fighting every little thing in between. So when the source material is stretched out, it feels even further. It's like a Square Enix game at the end when we finally get to the mansion at Dio. Oh, now we gotta fight the butlers. Now we gotta fight his right-hand man, and it's just, it takes so long to finally get to that finale, and it is 48 episodes. And I also kind of understand why David Production broke it up into 2 seasons, because it's kind of the way that the part is formatted with the Egyptian gods in the second half, as well as they really wanted to put a lot of effort into that epic final fight with Dio. But still, 48 episodes is just too long for the source material, and is one of the reasons why Stardust feels like such a drag to get through in the anime adaptation specifically. So if you guys have never read Stardust Crusaders, I highly recommend reading it. It is very enjoyable, and nothing feels like it lasts too long when you're reading the manga. And yeah, it's a really good read. And that was the good, the bad, and the ugly in Stardust Crusaders. I want to make clear that this was by no means supposed to be a full, comprehensive review of the part or anything like that. I just want to make a fun, lighthearted discussion about what I like and dislike about a part, because sometimes I really love JoJo's, sometimes more than other people, and I just want to get out there and talk about a part, talk about a characters and some of the things I like, and sometimes full in-depth discussions and reviews can be a bit daunting and stressful to tackle, and sometimes I just don't feel like doing videos like that. So instead of no content at all, I really like doing these face-to-face, more unscripted stuff like that. So like the video and let me know in the comments if you guys would like to see me do future parts of the good, the bad, and the ugly, although it's kind of unfair because one segment is the positives and then 2 segments are the negatives about it, but it's okay to criticize things you love and talk about what you might not like about it. It's all fair game. It's all fun. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more anime, manga, JoJo, gaming, and whatever else content, and I'll talk to you guys all real soon. All right, stay safe and peace.